So you're thinking about making a move, and maybe Hamilton's come across your list, and you're wondering to yourself, what is Hamilton really like? You know, you might have seen some articles praising it and some articles absolutely bashing it, right? There's maybe, right? It all depends. Today, I'm going to be giving you absolute truth about Hamilton. The good and the bad. I am the people's realtor. I'll never lie to you. I'm always going to give it to you straight. So if you want to learn more about living in Hamilton, subscribe, hit that bell, follow along, and we're going to be sharing great info for you every week. So Hamilton, right? Maybe you don't know much about it. Maybe you know it's kind of this industrial city, steel vibes, very rough. Now, maybe you know Hamilton, maybe you don't, but I'm sure you've heard stories about it. Firstly, let's talk a bit about what people like about Hamilton. You know, there's obviously lower home prices. Still way more affordable than Toronto. Your money's gonna go a lot farther here. Out there, you know, you got very little space, no space for the kiddos to move around. In Hamilton, for that money, you're gonna get a nice detached home, lots of room to grow and plant your seeds. And along with that, Hamilton really has some great communities. We have a lot of steel industry here, so in the North End, there's a lot of blue collar folks. Westdale and downtown, you got a lot of art scenes, musicians, bars, that kind of lifestyle, local shops, vintage. Same with around Ottawa Street, that's seen a big kind of revitalization with their shops and cafes and so forth. You know, Lock Street's another big one. And for people looking ahead to the future, you know, we do have an LRT under construction or soon to be under construction. It is a bit of a controversial subject in Hamilton. It's a light rail transit that'll cut right through Hamilton, east to west, west to east, and going all the way to Centennial Parkway at Stony Creek, right? They say this is going to take like 10 years, and it's kind of been in the works for at least 10 years, probably more. No one ever knows if it's going to get off the ground. There's been huge opposition for it, and a lot of people for it as well. It's very divisive, but nonetheless, it would be a great thing to have connecting the city. Keep in mind, that's going to be a big construction delay right through the heart of the city, you know, for a substantial amount of time. Another cool investment going into Hamilton is Pier 8 Waterfront redevelopment. Now, this is a beautiful spot, been underutilized for decades and decades and decades, and it's kind of hidden. You're not going to stumble upon this place. You kind of got to get to it, right? Well, they are turning this into a huge residential, you know, complex. I don't even want to say complex because it's more like a new neighborhood, a large one, right? And along the water, there's shops, so many amenities planned, beautiful units and homes there. So I'm really excited for that. Obviously, that's going to be another few years out, but, you know, something to think about if you want to live waterfront lifestyle, because Hamilton, a lot of pros, a lot of cons. One thing I'm not particularly thrilled about is just our waterfront access and just what it is, it's not great, right? And that's not a fault of anyone's. We had two major steel factories here. That's kind of why Hamilton thrived, you know, through the 70s and so forth. But it made Hamilton what it is. But it took up, you know, a ton of waterfront. And then there's a lot of pollution in the lake. You know, growing up, no one ever swam in Lake Ontario, at least not by, you know, the bay and stuff like that. But you go along further down the water, you can just go down to the Confederation Park, walk along the water all the way to, you know, it'll take you all the way to Burlington Pier. And not Burlington Pier, it's the Skyway Pier. Along that route, you got Hutch's. You could stop for, you know, foot-long hot dog. They're famous for their fish and chips, and so much to see, picnics, whatever you want, right? It's a beautiful park right along the water. Now, a nice segue into my next point is our nature, because we do have amazing green space and trails and things to explore and waterfalls. I've said it before, but if you didn't know, we got over 130 waterfalls, and we have the most waterfalls out of any city in the world. Pretty sure. Google that up. And you can hike these places. We got the Bruce Trail that cuts right through the city, and that'll take you all the way there. You go like Tobermory, which cuts right through the escarpment, kind of through the middle of Hamilton, east to west. It's Canada's oldest and longest footpath. It served soldiers would use it to traverse the region, and it goes all the way from Niagara all the way up to Tobermory, Ontario, which is really far. So it's pretty cool. It cuts through Hamilton. It's a nice trail. Along with that, we got Coots Paradise, Royal Botanical Gardens. If you're in the lower city, you're surrounded by the escarpment, and it's nice trees all the way through. And I'm really underselling it, but there's so much to explore if you want to, you know, go hiking. The Devil's Punch Bowl is a cool sight to see. our culture, our food and art scene is great. We have great restaurants here, and we have great art galleries along James Street, and just artists. Every second Friday of every month, we have Art Crawl, where a lot of artists and vendors and local artisans and are out there on the street. They close down James Street and they're out there, selling their wares, and there's so much cool stuff going on, great food. We have great bands, great music, nightlife is awesome, and like I said, great restaurants, world-class food, any cuisine you want. Mountain Grill, my favorite Indian food in Winona. Memphis Fire, great barbecue. These are some of the things that people love. And another thing people do like is they're able to commute to Toronto. Maybe you got to work in the office and you work in Toronto and you got to be in there 1, 2, 3, whatever days a week. So you got to get up and commute there. Now, this can be relatively painless to just a huge headache, depending on where you are, depending on the time you're, commuting, during rush hour. It's serving so many towns and cities. It's just jam-packed. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take a train. You want to take the GO train. Now, if you're in Stony Creek, the closest GO train to get you to Toronto kind of fast is going to be in the Hamilton station. It's closer to the Hamilton core. So it's almost better if you hop on the highway and drive your car to Burlington to take the GO train from there to Toronto. Takes you right to Union Station, and you're in the thick of it. Well, the problem with that is, you gotta get in your car if you live in Stony Creek and drive all the way to Burlington, get out. Sometimes it might even just be easier to just drive there. But traffic, that'll get you. Now, if you're closer to downtown, you just go to the Hamilton Go Center, which is on Hunter Street, and that'll take you there too. So commuting, I know people that do it. I know that people that have done it and said they can't do it, and they either go back or find a new job. But that leads me to say Hamilton's job market, if you're in kind of tech or finance or whatever, there's not a lot of opportunities locally in that sector, and you will be having to work out of Toronto, whether that means from home, in the office, or hybrid, right? So definitely something to keep in mind. And that's going to bring me right to my next thing. Property taxes are really high here. And we have a lot of really old aging infrastructure that is, for lack of a better word, failing. And that's just going to jack up prices even more. And it's just increasing like crazy. It seems like they can't figure it out. But property taxes here are some of the highest in Ontario. For some neighborhoods, we have really bad infrastructure. So you're not being served well with your money, especially when we pay so much for our property taxes. Another thing, rent, house prices in general. Hamilton used to be the affordable place to move to if you're moving out of Toronto or whatever, right? That's where a lot of people planted their seeds, and it was a great place to work, deal factories. But, over the last 10 years, and I'm not saying this is isolated to Hamilton because we saw it all over the country and all over most of the world, right? Home prices exploded. Now, while it's still cheaper than, say, Toronto, Burlington, Oakville, what have you, it can still be priced out pretty easily. I know a lot of people my age range, we started hitting the housing market of age when stuff started going crazy. A lot of people got priced out. A lot of people had to move to those secondary markets like Beamsville and Binbrook and Smithville and Brantford and all these surrounding areas. So a lot of people got pushed out to those areas, and those areas even saw a huge boom, and tons of development happened there. And even those prices, like I know Binbrook, prices went crazy there, and they don't even have a gas station that runs through the city. But saying that, Hamilton obviously has a huge range of different neighborhoods and stuff like that, like any mid to major size city. So there are pockets of Hamilton where the value is still there, it's still cheaper, not as many people know about it. So you got to talk to the People's Realtor, and we're going to find you what you need. You just call or text the number below or email me, whatever you want, whatever is easier. I am here to serve the people of the Greater Toronto, Hamilton area reach their goals. Now let's talk a little bit about getting around town, about traffic. Well, I don't want to say struggles because it's not inherently a bad thing, but it does make life a little more difficult. And that is our escarpment kind of cuts the city from higher to lower. It just is what it is. So the accesses up and down the hill, they are pretty good. But the trouble is it makes the city feel kind of disconnected. Lower Hamilton, you got, the downtown core and the waterfront, and it's very active and lively. And then you go up the mountain. Well, this is not necessarily a bad thing. It's all about your lifestyle. It's very grid-like homes, very, very residential, car-centric. It's not very walkable, so you're gonna have to get in your car and travel to where you want to go, right? But that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? It all depends on you. Now, talking about the lower city, on the way home, pick up some groceries and walk home. home. I know a lot of people, they like to get their fresh produce daily for dinner, so they want to be able in walking distance to the grocery store, right? So you'll want to be closer to the downtown core there. So like I said, such a wide variety of neighborhoods and communities. There really is something for everyone, okay? Now, there is some areas that are a bit rougher that you might want to avoid, right? In the north end, kind of along Barton Street and north of that and Burlington Street, it's very industrial. A lot of people complain that there's, sometimes there's some smells down there and they're not pleasant. And you may be looking at a home online in the north end and it looks great. It looks super cheap. But what you're not seeing is that zoomed out shot of the sandwiched in between two factories and stuff like that. And a lot of these neighborhoods are rough because they're lower income and, that's just the way life is. You're going to see some more crime there. And just generally, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to tell you the truth. A lot of weird stuff. We have encampments in some of these areas. That's not an isolated thing. Obviously, we're seeing that in mid to major sized cities, across the continent, really. So you're probably going to want to avoid those industrial areas, and I'm going to put you where you want to go. I'll never show you a house unless you tell me exactly what you want, and we're going to find you exactly what you need. Now, if you're expecting kind of this squeaky downtown Toronto kind of vibe, Hamilton's not really it. If you're expecting to go to the 24-hour diner, man, and we're going to get some pancakes at friggin' 5 a.m., dude, after the bar. I'm pretty sure our last 24-hour diner shut down. But if you're expecting that kind of downtown Toronto polish, you're not going to find exactly that. Now, that's not to say Hamilton doesn't have some great spots and stuff like that, but it has a lot of character. And what I mean by character is character, but also it's got some rough spots, you know what I mean? Now, if we want to get into the truth about pricing though, Hamilton, like I said, historically was the cheaper option compared to these places, and it was a great place for first-time home buyers. You're not going to find a house in Hamilton under $500,000 that is turnkey, right? You're going to have to go in there and do a ton of work. So if you are a first-time home buyer, this can be a big problem because you're not going to have those funds to, get in there and make it how you want. That being said, there are those towns and stuff outside of Hamilton, just a short drive away. Brantford is just, 15, 20 minutes from the West Mountain of Hamilton, and that's a great spot. And Beamsville, it's along the QEW. It's great for commuters. It's got a beautiful little downtown of its own and super easy access to get on and off the QEW if you are a commuter, et cetera, et cetera. There's way more than that. And these are towns that a lot of people find. It's easily accessible, great commuting towns, and just a great place to grow and live. And you're still in the Golden Horseshoe and you're still able to get wherever you need to be. So if you're watching this video and you're thinking about, wow, Hamilton has a lot of different things going on. Maybe I don't like this industrial part, or I do like being in the countryside because we got the Upper Stony Creek countryside. And if you want to know more about moving to Hamilton, you just book a Zoom call with me, call me, text me, email me, whatever you want, because we love when we get people giving us a ring to talk about moving to Hamilton, what they need, and fulfilling their goals. So I'll see you in the next one.